Welcome to the Jody Hice Show, featuring author, speaker, and president of Let Freedom Ring Ministries in Atlanta, Georgia, Jody Hice. To learn more about Let Freedom Ring Ministries, I urge you to visit our website, lfrministries.com. There you'll find ways that you can get involved in America's culture war. There's also a place where you can sign up to be a part of our national prayer team and to be a financial partner with Let Freedom Ring Ministries. Once again, our website is lfrministries.com. And now here's your host, Jody Hice.
Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate you getting everyone seated and on the bus at the right time. An honor to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Jody Hice Show, one of the most important cultural programs in America today. Here we keep focused on what's happening culturally, morally, and constitutionally. Anyone can talk politics. We talk culture. That is why this program is gaining such momentum. And people are just coming on board by the truckloads. We are not simply focused on what's happening politically. So glad to have you joining us today, and I am extremely excited with the direction that we are going to move today. Joining me here in just a few moments, it's been a while since we've had a guest on the program with me. Dr. Bill Green is going to be joining me here in just a few moments. He is just an amazing man. Bill has been involved in the Tea Party movement since its early beginnings. He has become recognized as a national mover and shaker in the Tea Party. He is, in fact, I ran into him one time in St. Louis. I was going out there for a different conference. He was going to speak at a national Tea Party conference in St. Louis. We merged together there in the airport, had a great time spending there for a few moments with him and his family. Just a delightful family. But Bill is a mover and shaker. He has written the Constitutional Tender Act, which is now beginning to gain momentum across the country in various states. But right here in our own state of Georgia, this is being introduced. It is going to require our state to abide by the Constitution of the United States when it comes to our money. The Constitution requires us, everyone in this country, only to operate off of silver and gold coinage. We are far removed from that, but had we remained a country based on gold and silver, we would not be seeing the recession we are in right now. Bill Green has introduced the Constitutional Tender Act. You don't want to miss the wisdom, the insight that this guy has to share with us. He'll be joining me right after this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a jiffy with Dr. Bill Green.
Arizona tax credit program challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court. I am Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. We'll talk about this next on Freedom's Call. Liberty Counsel filed an amicus brief in the case of Arizona Christian School Tuition Organization versus Wynn. The case at hand concerns an Arizona school choice law that provides dollar-for-dollar tax credits to taxpayers who make contributions to independent organizations, which in turn grant scholarships to students attending private schools. Many of these schools which receive funding are sectarian, which is why the Arizona law is being challenged. However, the money coming to these organizations is from the voluntary donations of tax-paying citizens of Arizona, not from the government. Liberty Counsel has thrown its unequivocal support behind the case, and we firmly believe that the law should be upheld because all parents deserve the right to choose how to educate their children. The law simply reinforces the right that every parent should enjoy. Parents should not be forced to place their children in government schools, especially when some schools doom their children to failure. Liberty Counsel is proud to say that we are standing up for parents to have the right to choose. To learn more about this case and many others, go to Liberty Counsel's website at lc.org or call us today at 1-800-671-1776.
Liberty Counsel is a religious civil liberties education and legal defense organization. For more information, call 1-800-671-1776.
And welcome back to the Jody Hice Show. An honor to be with you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and a great privilege to have on the phone with me right now Dr. Bill Green. Bill, thank you so much for joining me. Great privilege to speak with you again.
Jody, thank you so much for having me.
Great honor indeed. All right, we've got tons to talk about, so let's just go ahead and start jumping into it. We really became friends. We were introduced in the midst, really, of the campaign I was involved in. You're heavily involved in the Tea Party. How did all that come about for you?
Well, a lot of it is I've been active in grassroots politics and grassroots activism for a while now, and so it's sort of, as the Tea Party got its start, I started, because I knew the people that were getting involved in it and leading the way. I said, this is a fantastic thing. This is something that could really motivate just the people, the average people that for so long haven't had their voices heard. And so I did everything I could to promote the Tea Party gatherings, and as they got bigger and bigger, I was just privileged and honored to be a part of it and to speak at many of the rallies, speak at the large one we had downtown Atlanta, to speak at the very large one we had last year in D.C., the recent one in St. Louis. And it's just been an amazing thing as I've seen people step up that have never really been involved before, because they see now is the time when people need to be speaking up and stepping out and taking action on these things. And it's just been exciting to be a part of that movement.
Well, it really is. And the Tea Party movement is just that. It's grassroots, and that's what's so exciting to me. It is just it is a groundswell across this country of people who, in essence, are saying enough is enough. We're going to take our country back. That's
exactly right. And we're seeing it across the board in every area. I mean, you're seeing it in a lot of politics. You've seen it in the recent election. You've seen it in a lot of the campaigns that people got involved in, like your campaign, that people had never been involved before, but saw that they finally did have a way to make their voices heard. We're also seeing it in a lot of issue areas, different issue areas. You know, obviously we saw with the healthcare issue, a lot of people getting involved, trying to get government to not be so involved in healthcare, to not step outside of its constitutional bounds. And I think the Constitution has been the sort of center point that people are now revolving around. So that's why we're seeing it in many other areas, including in the area of monetary policy. What does the Constitution say that the federal government can do? What does the Constitution say that state governments can do? And people are getting involved in that area too. All right, well, let's jump into that, because you are right in the thick of that particular issue, which is of great importance to me personally, and I know to so many people. You have really written, you are the mastermind, at least I think that's fair to say, behind what is called now the Constitutional Tender Act. This is an enormously huge step in the direction of reclaiming our economy, really, which has been hijacked in contrary to the Constitution. Explain. Well, one of the things that we've seen happen in the last few decades has been, in so many different areas, the United States has gotten away from what the Constitution specifically says that the federal government can and cannot do, but also that the state governments can and cannot do. And the results of that have been for our country to really decline in so many ways. That includes in the area of money and the value of our money. The United States Constitution is very specific when it says in Article 1, Section 10, it says, "No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt." So that means that states, by constitutional requirement, can't accept or pay out any money except using gold and silver. But of course, that's not the case now. Every state in the Union, in the whole United States of America, does make some other thing besides gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, and that thing is called Federal Reserve notes, the fiat money that's not backed by anything, at least since 1971, and really going back earlier than that. And so what this bill, the Constitutional Tender Act, is all about, what it does, is for the state, and in this case for Georgia, but we've got a template that can be used in every state in the union. The state would then return to adherence to the United States Constitution's actual legal tender provisions and would return to using gold and silver as its means of receiving money and paying money out.
All right, now we have had Federal Reserve notes for a long, long time. You mentioned 1971. What happened then, and I know even before then, but why is that date so important?
Well, that date's important because that's when President Richard Nixon finally actually closed the gold window. You couldn't actually redeem dollars for gold anymore in this country if you were just an average citizen, but the gold window was still open under the old Bretton Woods agreement for other countries to still redeem dollars for gold at $35 an ounce. That was a fixed price. Well, obviously they couldn't, since they were inflating the money supply and our dollars were being poured out into the economy even then, the United States couldn't even keep up with that anymore. And so Nixon just, on his own, completely took us off of the gold standard, even internationally. So what that means is, since 1971, there's not been any foundation for states to be able to say, yes, we're obeying the Constitution on what kind of money we are allowed to use. Since 1971, the Federal Reserve note, which is obviously used by every state in the country for everything, but the Federal Reserve note has not even had any backing of gold or silver. And so that means that at least since that time, states have been in violation of the United States Constitution. If we get back to using gold and silver coin, then what we'll do is really save the value of people's money that deal with the state, and that includes state pensions. That includes the value of people's money that are in banks. As people see that the value of gold and silver remains constant in terms of what it can actually buy, whereas these Federal Reserve notes, as we're seeing even now, the value is shooting downwards in terms of what it can buy, then people will start using that more and more. And as we explain on the website, there's really a snowball effect that can take place and return real value to our money so that people's paychecks can be saved in this country.
You mentioned your website, constitutionaltender.com. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And
All right.
We've tried to put a lot of information there. We've got frequently asked questions. We've got copies of the current bill, templates that can be introduced in other states, all sorts of things that we've got there.
All right, now the way this will work, as I understand it, Bill, is what you're really, and I may be wrong. Explain how this will work. You're not talking about doing away with the dollar bill, the Federal Reserve note, but actually having it backed with gold and silver. Is that correct?
Well, the way this would actually work is it's going to the state level to do something that people have been trying to do at the federal level for a long time, and that's get rid of the Federal Reserve system itself, get rid of these fiat dollars. The dollar ought to be on a gold standard nationwide. It's not. It hasn't been for many decades now, and that's why they're able to overinflate our currency, and it's backed by nothing. They can create money out of thin air, which makes the money worth less and less. What we're doing here is attacking this problem of our money becoming worth less at the state level using the Constitution itself. So it doesn't do anything to Federal Reserve notes themselves. It doesn't eliminate Federal Reserve notes or the Federal Reserve or anything that the federal government is doing in that way. What it does is it specifically says that the state can only use gold and silver in its transactions. In other words, if they owe money to people, whether it's tax refunds or they have contracts with contractors and so forth, they can only pay in gold and silver. If they are owed money in taxes or fees or what have you, it can only be paid in gold and silver. And what that means is people will begin to start using gold and silver because the United States mints gold and silver coins. Our U.S. Mint has gold and silver coins. It still mints them. They're still going, and they're legal tender. And what this does is it actually gets that real money circulating at the same time that Federal Reserve notes are circulating, and people will see very quickly that real money holds its value, and this fiat paper money, these pieces of paper with dead presidents on it that don't have any backing of anything, doesn't hold its value, and that money can be pushed to the side.
All right, what about I remember when the $2 bill came out, the Susan B. Anthony dollar, all these kinds of things, and they actually became collector's items. People refused to go out and spend them. They kept them. What would prevent that? I can't recall the last time I saw a real silver coin other than in a collection, or a gold coin. What is the likelihood of these things actually beginning to circulate?
I think that's an incredibly high likelihood if we're able to pass the Constitutional Tender Act, because what that does is, think about it this way: every question that can be asked about this bill can be preceded with this statement. Since the U.S. Constitution requires every state to only use gold and silver coins in payments to and by the state, then blank, then the rest of the question. That's what we're looking at here, is that this is what the Constitution requires, so how do we fulfill that requirement? Now, in doing so, what that will mean is that these gold and silver coins that are still minted, that are still legal tender, they are available for use, but right now they only have numismatic value. In other words, people get gold and silver coins for investments or for collecting, that sort of thing. What it will do is put them back into circulation. The reason that they get knocked out of circulation most of the time when you have real gold and silver in circulation is because of legal tender laws. Is because the federal government can say to people, you must use these pieces of paper that are backed by nothing. And so that's the Gresham's law, where bad money drives out good money. People begin hoarding gold and silver and saying, well, I'm going to keep this because it's valuable. But what this will do is, if we return to actually obeying the Constitution at the state level, then the states will be able to say, sure, you have to use Federal Reserve notes for everything that the federal government says, except your transactions with the state, because the Constitution says you can only use gold and silver coins with transactions with the state. What that means is that businesses will be wanting gold and silver coins because they have to pay their taxes and their sales taxes and so forth to the state government. That means businesses are going to want to accept coins from the general public, so they'll start pricing things in gold and silver coins as well as Federal Reserve notes. That means people will see, well, gosh, last week this was so many dollars, now it's gone up to this many dollars, but it's still only this much silver or this much gold. And so people will want to start buying things with gold and silver. They're also going to need gold and silver to pay their taxes. They're also going to... all of it starts getting the money in circulation so that you have competition between real money and paper money. And when that is allowed, and the Constitution requires it, then real money can win, and we can save our money.
Well, and that's what's at stake here. We are going to continue to see our money decrease in value through inflation as long as it's based on nothing. And, our Constitution, our founders were wise enough to understand that there is value to a good day's work, and that value should not be based on nothing. It ought to be based on something like gold and silver that endures in its value. Now, let me ask you, what kind of traction is this getting at the state level?
We've been kind of surprised, actually. It was first introduced a couple of years ago in the Georgia legislature. Representative Bobby Franklin introduced it here. And we've already seen at least a half a dozen other states that are introducing this or similar bills, and we're seeing even more this coming year that you've got legislators saying they are also going to be introducing it in their state legislatures. So in terms of introduction into the legislatures, it's picking up traction. But in terms of its prospects, when we had it introduced in the last session in Georgia, we didn't think it would get very far at all. We ended up with a full hearing before a combined subcommittee of the Banks and Banking Committee in the State House, and it was a great hearing, a lot of great testimony. The only people that were opposed to it were lobbyists for the banking industry because they recognized they wouldn't be able to create money out of thin air the way they're able to do right now.
Right. Which hurts all of us.
Exactly, and what we're seeing now is there are more legislators this year that in Georgia that are interested in pushing this bill. So I think we're going to be able to go even further with it. Plus, the timing is right for this, as we're seeing what the Federal Reserve is doing to our money even more, as their quantitative easing has pumped trillions of dollars into the economy that weren't there before, as their next round of quantitative easing is about to make the value of the dollar drop even more. This is the time when people are saying, oh my gosh, what's happening to our money? What have they done to it? This is the time that people are also saying, hey, what does the Constitution say about this and this and this and this? And combine those two together, and they see that Article 1, Section 10 says that states can only use gold and silver, and gold and silver is what's going to save the value of our money. This is the perfect timing.
Absolutely. All right, Bill. I'm sorry. I need to continue that. I've just got absolutely just like a page of questions I'd like to ask you, including about the Federal Reserve. I think a lot of people need to understand why the Federal Reserve is such an enormous part of the problem, and the entire banking industry as it has been created is declining all of our money. So I need to get you back on. But for now, how can people get in touch with you or find out more about the Constitutional Tender Act?
They can go right to the website, constitutionaltender.com. They can look at all the questions there. There's a section there you just click on to contact us, and it'll go straight to me. And we have a blog there that's linked right from the front page that keeps you updated on exactly what's happening with the progress on this bill and related issues.
Bill Green, thank you so much for joining me. I think this is an absolutely brilliant piece of legislation. I'm so thankful for you, your leadership in this, and that it is gaining momentum right here in the state of Georgia. It would be awesome to see something like this gain traction nationally coming right here, and I thank you for joining me.
Jody, thank you so much for having me on.
God bless you. We'll get you back here real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Thank you for joining me today on the Jody Hice Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a second.
It's time for The Legal Edge, a look at your rights as a Christian, a parent, and a citizen. And now, with a look at what's happening on the legal front, the president of the Pacific Justice Institute, Brad Dacus.
Judge Stephen Reinhart is one of 3 judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to hear arguments in the California Proposition 8 marriage case. Why are we not surprised, being as Reinhart has a long history of advocacy for homosexual rights? Also, his wife is the outgoing head of the ACLU of Southern California, strategizing with those seeking to throw out Prop 8 and traditional marriage. Well, with his history of bias and his wife's involvement fighting Prop 8, Pacific Justice Institute has taken the extraordinary step of calling for his recusal from this case. I'm Brad Dacus.
To find out more about The Legal Edge, call 916-857-6900 or log on at pacificjustice.org.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to the Jody Hice Show, one of the most important cultural programs in America today, and we welcome you aboard. An honor, likewise, to bring your way today Dr. Bill Green, just an incredible mover and shaker, nationally recognized within the Tea Party movement, but right here in our own state of Georgia has written the Constitutional Tender Act. It has been submitted in the state level. It is gaining traction, gaining momentum. And in fact, there are, probably last time I looked, close to 10 states across these United States who are now on the verge of introducing some similar legislation as the Constitutional Tender Act, which would require states to function according to the Constitution. Imagine that. To function constitutionally as it relates to our means of economic tender. The Constitution requires us to use only gold and silver. Currently, of course, you know we use Federal Reserve notes that are worthless. They're not even backed by gold and silver. Therefore, the value of that is nebulously set by some Fed up there who determines what the value of the dollar bill ought to be. And we are watching it decline. The more it declines, the less value you have in your money in the bank. The more it declines, the less value we have globally with our economy, because we are based on nothing. If we would get back to the Constitution, that would change. Let me encourage you to visit constitutionaltender.com. Constitutionaltender.com. You can get much more information right there. Thank you for joining me today. As always, a great honor. Thank you, Bill Green, for being my guest today. Had you been able to stay on the line, our gift to our guest today would have been a truckload of gold and silver and coins, but since you had to go, we are going to keep that for ourselves. Thank you, Bill, for joining us, as always. If you'd like to get in touch with me, www.lfrministries.com, lfrministries.com, or you can write us at Let Freedom Ring Ministries, P.O. Box 81881, Atlanta, Georgia, 30366. God bless you. Have a fantastic remainder of your day.